And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Pole Obsession with me, Felix, and the beautiful Elle. We've got a pretty heavy and an important topic to talk about today. We're going to talk about cancel culture in the pole industry. And we also have a very special guest with us today, and it's Frances Amber. Hello, Frances, and welcome.
Hi, everyone.
We just want to start with people who experience cyberbullying are 2 to 4 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts or attempts, and in some studies, nearly double the risk of suicide-related behaviour. In Australia alone, it estimates around 3 suicides per week are linked to cyberbullying, and it's not rare. 1 in 5 Australians experience cyberbullying.
But it's not just deaths. Cancel culture and online pile-ons lead to loss of income and business, reputational damage that follows you permanently, anxiety, depression, and even PTSD-level trauma. People lose their careers, their communities, and sometimes their entire identity overnight.
And here's the key point. Cancel culture functions psychologically the same as bullying. Public shaming, social exclusion, and repeated exposure. And the data shows very clearly those conditions significantly increase suicide risk.
So when people say it's just a comment or it's just online, the reality is the consequences are very real. So you might think you're just commenting, but to someone else, you could be contributing to the worst moment of their life.
Yeah. So starting with that very heavy statistic, which it actually is, we're now going to have a quick chat, or a long chat, probably, knowing us, it'll be a long chat, that's for sure, with Frances. Hi, Frances.
Hi.
Introduce yourselves to everyone.
Hi, I am Frances Amber. That's my stage name. I am the co-owner of Pole Divas Reservoir and Pole and Aerial Divas Caroline Springs. I've been in the pole industry. I've just had my 15-year pole anniversary, so 15 years in the pole industry. What else? What else do I need to say about myself?
What does cancel culture mean to you?
Cancel culture is something I feel really passionately about, in the fact that we need to change things. We're getting to a point where it's getting really serious. People are very comfortable in policing people online and telling them how to think, feel, and act. And yeah, I think we need to have a discussion about it. And it is harmful, as per the statistics you've just mentioned. And yeah, I think a discussion around it would be very helpful, not just within the pole industry, as a whole, as a community online as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think we as the veterans in our industry, maybe we hold a little bit of responsibility in showing the young'uns how to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've been here for a long time and we've seen trends come and go, and now this is coming in a big way and has had effect on people that we know ourselves. And so I think it is a discussion that needs to happen. I think it's education as well that needs to happen, because I would hope that people don't know what they're doing. You know, I would hope it's ignorance rather than malice.
Yeah, I mean, you do hope that, but it does come from different places as well. And that's not just saying within our community. We do have examples that we're going to read of people within our community that it has quite seriously affected. And it has affected both Felix and I quite dramatically over many years, depending on what was written. So we're going to maybe say a little bit about our experiences with it too. But Frances, you've had a recent experience with it. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in a recent pole competition, we've had a routine that was paying homage to an 80s stripper, in her words. It wasn't really telling a story. It wasn't really glamorizing or talking about it in a negative way. In my opinion, she was dancing on stage in a fluoro leotard, got her boobs out a little bit at the end, as many did in Frisk as well. Following that night, she did place second as well, which was really exciting for her. But following that night, there was an online post made directly about her, not mentioning any names, but it was done in a mean fashion, in my opinion. And that has really affected her. I think there was a lot of good points made from the video in relation to sex workers, and some stuff that they go, a lot of heavy stuff that they do go through. And no one's negating that. It's more the fact that the way it was done was not in a nice way. And that's really affected this young pole dancer and really taken away from her moment in winning second place.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to touch on when you said it really affected her. You did mention to us just before we started recording that she hadn't slept for 5 nights. So I think that's really important to say things like that. That's happened to me, and I know that's happened to Felix as well. Is there any more depth that you can go into about that?
Look, I've been talking with her a lot and just trying to support her as much as I can. But yeah, she's not having a great time at the moment. We ran a really fun workshop yesterday with Daphne at the studio. Like she couldn't come. Like she's just very secluded at the moment, not eating, not sleeping very well. Like it's consumed her whole, well, it's been over a week now. So it's been 8 days, like where it's just consumed her. I'm hoping soon she'll be okay. I'm sure she'll be okay. But yeah, I just feel really bad for her.
I do too. And something that should have been a really great achievement and experience for her because she placed. And that's a really, really big deal. And Frisk is a big competition.
Yeah.
So
big competition, yeah.
It should have been an exciting moment.
Yeah. And she's up, like she's got her video back now. She's not comfortable sharing it just yet, in which I've said, no, absolutely, you're going to share this. It was a great show. The crowd went wild. I know there was many sex workers in the audience that I've seen post that on their story. So they obviously have not taken offense to it in the way that some have.
Yeah. And I think it's so important that, you know, like you said, there were some good points made in the video that was attacking her, but it was not anonymous. You know, everybody knew who it was about, which made it really, I think, quite horrible because there's a person on the receiving end of that. So instead of just, you know, saying your piece and saying, in my opinion, I feel like people shouldn't be doing this because this and this, you've taken somebody and you've given the court of public opinion a target to go after and to be on the receiving end of all of that hate. And that's horrible. That's a really horrible feeling to go through and a really horrible thing to do to a person. I think it's unfair. I think it's unjust. And I think that we got to change. Like it's not a fair, right, good, kind thing to do. And I feel really, really horribly, like I feel so bad for this poor person who's put, you know, so much effort into creating such a beautiful routine. And in her words, pay homage. You know, that means to respect. That means to say thank you to the people that came before me to give me this opportunity to dance like this now. And that's art, you know, and I've said many times that this is an art. This is not, this is something that we get to express in however we choose to express it. And you know, we've offended lots of people. We've offended lots of people by dancing on a pole. Like we used to offend the general public. The general public didn't like looking at us because we were dancing on.
Do, mate.
So we have offended lots of people, but that's not the problem. The problem is when people gang up on you and start attacking you personally for things that, you know, they disagree with you having done. And I think that's cruel.
I also think when you do defend yourself on these sorts of public posts, there's a pile-on. So it scares you from speaking. I know so many people that this post went to that came to me and said, Elle, have you seen this? That completely disagree with the post, completely disagree with the way it was done, but most people are not going to write on it because they don't want people to pile on to them. They don't want to be the next victim.
The thing is, when you're coming to the defense of someone or yourself in these situations, it doesn't have as much traction. Like it's the trolling has already happened, right? Because these videos usually, and I think what we're talking about to get really granular is somebody will post a video to get traction, right? To get people's attention. And the algorithm loves that, right? So people get involved with the emotion, they'll comment, they'll like, and so it gets seen by more people. It will comment and like, and not thinking about the person on the other side of it. So that's the sort of thing that we're talking about, is that like people putting up videos talking about other people and then that getting liked and shared and becoming viral. when you come to the defense of something like that, it is not as interesting. It is not as powerful on social media. So you're not going to get the same traction. So the attention is, it's one-sided. There's one
Yeah.
argument getting a lot of visuals and shares and relikes because it's punchier, more spicy, more provocative, more say, people like that sort of thing, unfortunately. But on the other side, people maybe talking logical sense are boring. So that
Mm.
doesn't get seen. So it's just this like self-perpetuating bullshit cycle.
Yeah, and I really felt I had to comment when I saw that straight away. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning when I saw it, and I'm like, no. I think people that know me know I'm very loyal to the people I love. So of course I'm absolutely going to jump to her defense, and I was very respectful in what I said. I didn't negate any of like the hurt and negative things that sex workers go through. I understand all of that. It's two separate things. It's like, yes, that is true, but then also this is not this is a bit of misdirected anger. This is not the person that has done those horrible things. Why aren't we paying attention to them, to the, as mentioned in the video, the men on the boat that made a woman feel so uncomfortable that she had to jump overboard and swim to the shore? Like,
Yeah.
why are we not directing our anger at them? And I did actually have to remove myself from Instagram for a few days because it started respectful and then it just got very disrespectful and catty. I was starting to get catty back and so I just had to remove myself from the situation. And it wasn't a respectful conversation anymore, which is sad. Like, we should be able to disagree and have a respectful conversation and everyone gets to say their side of things.
100%, 100%, where we can treat each other with respect and say, that's an interesting opinion. That's an interesting outlook. This is how I feel, like you feel like that, I feel like this. I don't agree with that. Okay. Agree to disagree.
The other thing I wanted to say about this particular routine, as you said, it was an homage to strippers. What about the movie Striptease by Demi Moore? What about the movie Hustler
Yeah.
with J-Lo in it? Why is that okay? Why are we celebrating that? And why are we trying to stop art? I've had people in my competitions and in other competitions as well do a Pretty Woman routine. Should we be stopping that? I've had somebody do a boy in a striped pajama routine. Should we be stopping that? I mean, the routines that I've had, I can tell you were like, I was like, oh, I don't know, it's a risky choice. Do you know what I mean? I've had to so many times put trigger warnings out there as well. Suicide, mental illness, all these sorts of things. What we do is art, and what Felix was saying before is, why are we trying to stop people doing art?
That's what I mentioned that in my comments as well too, where policing art, like how do we police art? We can't. And with the movie Hustlers, I don't think that's J-Lo's lived experience of being a stripper in a club, but I know in that movie they spoke, I think it was someone in America they've consulted with and to be honest on that, has worked in clubs before creating this routine. That helped her choreograph it and put it together. So she had mentioned it to her. I myself have worked in clubs for most of my 20s. She told me about the theme. I thought it was great. The owners of the Frisk competition and the people that run it have worked in clubs for years. Maybe not in the 80s, but close to the 80s as well. And no one said anything and no one stopped it. So for it to all come down on her, like a young woman, I just think that's really unfair as well.
We agree.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I would like to say about that is, and Felix and I have spoken about this previously quite a lot, if you are not happy with something somebody's done or you have an opinion on it, that's absolutely your right and your entitlement to have an opinion on anything. We've all got opinions and that's okay. I feel like as a leader in the community or a studio owner or somebody that people look up to, I think would be really good for our community to go and speak to that person and say, hey, a private message, this is how I felt. Do you mind having a quick chat with me about it? This is why I felt like that, instead of putting them on public blast.
Yeah, definitely. That would be a lot of helpful. And I think it sounds like there's a lot of like trauma from the people that are really upset that they've been through. But yeah, I think there needs to be a little bit of inner work as well. And resolving a bit of that trauma, because if you're going to go take that and then do the same thing in a different way, like put that
Mhm.
hurt onto someone else, that's not healthy. Like you maybe need to do a little bit of emotional regulation before you step out and put stuff in the world that's just coming from a place of anger and hate. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you also on that, if you can't recognize that there's going to be that, there's going to be someone on the receiving end of this that is going to have this is going to have a physical effect on. They're not going to sleep, they're not going to eat, they're going to feel horrible, they're going to feel stress, they're going to feel anxiety. And if you can't see that that is going to happen on the other side of what you're saying, then again, you really need to have a look inward and ask yourself why you think it's okay to do that.
This is a heavy one, guys. We know this is a heavy one, but
Like,
I really think it's important. It's important.
no,
It's with,
it's so
you know,
important.
happening
Yeah.
in our community. And I also want to say something about that happening in our community. We say everyone is welcome in pole. We say it's for all bodies, it's for all shapes, it's for all sizes, it's for all people, it's for all ages. When you come into our studios or into our community, we will provide you with a safe space. What happened was not safe. What does happen in our community is not safe.
Yeah.
I would not feel safe going to a space like that and being scared of what I wanted to say because I can't have an opinion. So if we want to keep our community and our studios and our pole safe spaces safe, we have to rethink how we're doing things.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when we do disagree,
Mm-hmm.
that it isn't, we don't take it to the court of public opinion because that court, like you say, isn't safe, it isn't just, it isn't fair. Um, and it can very quickly be warped into truth and what people think is the truth and what people think is reality when it's not reality. So we're talking very much about this one example with the dancer and the other person who disagreed with her performance, but it's not just that we're talking about. Like it is so much more broad than just that. There's other examples that we have and we'll read out that where people have experienced the same type of cancel culture but for various different reasons. So yeah, it could come for you. You never know.
Well,
That's what I
that's
mean. That's what I mean at the heart of it. It's like if you're going to start this culture, then you're also going to get called out for something. Like no one's
Yeah, yeah.
perfect. You're going to offend people by accident. It's not usually coming from a place of malicious intent, but yeah, it's coming
Because
for
we're
you.
all humans and we're all perfectly imperfect. Like we're
Yeah.
gonna upset somebody, even intentional, well, unintentional, intentional. Who knows? No, not everybody's not gonna agree with you 100% of the time, and that's the thing.
that's okay. And I think also maybe come from it from a point of view, if you wouldn't want it done to you, don't do it to somebody else. Treat people how you want to be treated. And then a lot of things will change once we start to do that. Speak to people how you want to be spoken to and just really think about your words because they can cut really deeply and they can really hurt somebody that you may not realize what they're going through, what they've been through, and maybe it's your words or your post that can just send them over the edge. We've read the statistics on suicide at the beginning, and they are real statistics. That's not a joke. Getting anxiety from something like this is real. This is real. This affects real people. So we need to think about how we speak, what we say, and how we can be better.
Yeah, and I think I touched on that in my post that I did on my social media about what's the goal? Like, do you want to educate or are you just wanting to humiliate and kind of get a rage bait effect, get lots of attention for yourself and maybe whatever you're promoting in your life? Like, or do you want to educate someone and actually help? And I think I know what people that have a different opinion to us will be saying. I saw a post that touched on tone policing, whereas people will take away from the point at hand and focus on the tone. But I think that just removes all accountability from the other side. Like, it is true, your words can hurt someone, and just because you're hurt, it doesn't mean that you acting in this way and speaking to people in a mean way online and calling someone out in front of millions of people, that is hurtful. So you do need to think about your own actions and not just what's being done to you. Your
Yeah.
reaction to that matters.
Yeah. I wonder if it's important to say, at this point, can like cancel culture itself is that the demon, the enemy, like, and I was just like, I just did some Googling. I'm like, what is cancel culture? What does it actually look like? And here's my bullet points. So cancel culture is calling someone out on social media. That in itself, is it good? Is it bad? I think it's neither. It's just a thing. Boycotting their work or business. Losing followers, clients, or opportunities, being excluded from communities or events. So cancel culture is like sitting between two ideas of accountability and overreach, right? So on one side, people are held responsible for harmful actions. Okay. Marginalized voices get heard. Okay. And power gets challenged. Okay. But on the other side, there's no due process or full context. People are judged instantly by the public. Punishment can outweigh the mistake, and it's hard to recover from those claims, even if the claims are proved false or resolved. So I feel like people who maybe cancer culturing, calling people out, maybe they just have this idea in their head that they are trying to come from a marginalized place, trying to say like, hey, listen to me, look at me, these are my things I have to say, but not really thinking about the other side, not really thinking about, the overreach, the punishment without due process, the backlash on that person. So I don't want to like demonize or villainize anybody who's doing this, but I do want to say, can you just check yourself? Can you just be really careful and make sure that this is what you want to do? Because now that you've heard what's on the other side of it, is this really what you want to do? And is this really the way that you want to do it? And if you're on the other side, so if you're commenting and liking, do you want to be a part of that? Do you really want to be a part of this? This is not like some radical idea. This is a viral thing. This happens all the time. And it happens, for these reasons. Do you want to be a part of this? Or do you want to step back and say, no, not for me. I shall not be part of this naughty, naughty thing that Felix doesn't like.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know. Just thought I should. I don't know. I have thoughts. I have thoughts and feelings.
we've got some statements from people within our pole industry. Now, we will not be saying who these people are, but they're very prominent big names that every person in the pole industry knows about experiences that have happened to them. So we just want to read a couple of statements that they've given us to show you that this is not just about a recent incident. This has happened frequently. This is how it's affected people. So I'll do the first one. Which is not me, this is somebody else, but I was publicly criticised for evolving in my style as a performer. Someone framed that evolution as hypocrisy and attached accusations to me that were completely untrue and didn't reflect my values or how I've ever shown up in the industry. What affected me the most wasn't just the comment itself, but how confidently it was stated as though it were fact. It reduced years of growth and personal exploration into a single inaccurate narrative. It's just too easy for people to hide behind a keyboard and make bold, definitive claims about someone else that aren't true, and how easily assumptions can become labels in online spaces, regardless of whether they are grounded in reality.
My thoughts, it goes to what we've been saying before, that it's like we dehumanize the person on the other side. When we are typing on our computers, we're not thinking of that person as my sister, my mother, my brother, my friend. We are not my family. We are thinking of that person as not even human, because it doesn't matter. I'm just venting. I'm just getting my emotions out on the keyboard. I should be going to my therapist and sitting down and saying, I wanted to be cruel to a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's so misguided. It's so, what's the word when you're not aiming at the right thing?
Yeah, misdirected.
Right. Yeah.
Corrected. Yeah,
Of anger.
I feel like, yeah, and when you're the person on the receiving end of it, it feels so unjust, because you can't go to these thousands and millions or whatever people that have been attacking you and be like, actually, guys, I what? I didn't do that. Or even if I did do that, I did that because of this, or, not because of that. There's no way to like combat it. And so you're
And I
just
think Yeah, so I think what you see, not in the pole industry, but when you see like influence and stuff getting cancelled, there's nothing they can say in that situation that
No.
they'll say, "I'm sorry," and they'll get told you don't mean that. You're just saying that because you've been caught out. They'll try and defend themselves. They'll say, "No, that's not true." Like
Yeah.
they don't. Yeah, they're not listened to. There's nothing you can say. I think the best thing in that situation is to just put your head down and wait till it all blows over, and then the next person's going to get cancelled, and the attention's going to come off you.
Well,
Exactly.
that's it, isn't it? That's what happens is like they have to sit quiet, go low, and then the next one comes up and then it blows over. But sometimes it never blows over. Sometimes it takes years to blow over. Sometimes the person has harmed themselves before it does blow over because they can't take it anymore. That's something that we really need to think about.
Yeah, 100%. I've got another one here that I'll read out. This is a quote from another one of our poll people. I stepped into a public conversation to question whether it was the right place to be calling out studios. It felt like a complex situation being reduced to something very one-sided, and I believed those discussions were better handled directly. What followed was unexpected. I became the target of personal accusations that weren't true, stated as if they were fact by someone who didn't know me. What stayed with me was how quickly speculation became accepted as truth. It left me feeling shaken and highlighted how easily online spaces can shift from discussion into something personal and harmful.
Yeah. They sure can, can't they? Very personal and very harmful. I've brought up in a previous episode the illusory truth effect. Now, that's something really, really real, and that's something that's happened here. So if you hear something enough, you give somebody a reputation and then people believe it, whether it's true or not. I do believe a lot of people get on there because they may have had a grievance with somebody, and then they'll say things like that to get that effect out of people. Now, that effect doesn't go away. People believe that. And
tricky as well because like now the way that our marketing works, we have to be online. Like we have to use social media. That's the only way we can make money as a pole studio, as a pole dancer. That's the forum. You have to use it. And if you don't, nobody sees you, nobody wants you. So it's like a catch-22 because you have to use this thing that's so wildly dangerous and uncomfortable to be on at times.
Yeah. And I think as well, a lot of the time, and this is why I commented on that post, because there's might be an opinion and it might be a very small minority of people that believe that within it, so for example, within people that have done sex work, if that is offensive for someone to do a show as a stripper, it might be a very small minority of those people that feel that way, but they're so loud and getting that opinion out there and not giving anyone the space to have a different opinion because then they'll also get cancelled. Well, then that's not really the truth of the situation. You can't speak on behalf of every single stripper and sex worker that also is a pole dancer in their opinion. You just can't. So
you can't speak on behalf of everyone. Like it's us. It's like us saying we are here and we are speaking on behalf of all pole dancers. No, we're not.
No, exactly.
We're speaking on behalf of ourselves.
Yeah,
and this is our opinion.
I'm speaking on behalf of
experience.
I think this is a good point for me to say. This is my opinion. This is not obviously. I'm talking in relation to myself only, not the wider divas. Owners
no, of
and
course.
leaders. This is just my opinion.
So, though I will say, both you and Felix have worked in clubs, and this is both your opinions. So you cannot speak on behalf of an entire community.
Yeah, and I know I've spoken to many well-known, influential, basically started pole dancing in, Australia figures that feel the same as well. So yeah. But then they don't want to speak up because a lot of them have businesses. They don't want to get their business cancelled. They don't want to.
Yeah.
It's their livelihood.
It's a really shitty situation to be in where if you disagree with this court of public opinion, you almost can't say anything because then you're at risk of getting cancelled too.
Yeah.
So in one way, this marginalized group has a voice, but in another way, another marginalized group doesn't have a voice.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to read out one of my personal experiences now. Now, I have written this down because as told by one of my friends, I have too many tabs open. And once I go down a rabbit hole, I find it hard to get my way back. So I've written this down and I'm going to read it. So one of my experiences, and this is where cancel culture gets really subtle. There was a comment made publicly in a Canberra girls group questioning whether our Google reviews were real, because we had a lot of great 5-star Google reviews for my studio. And then they invited others to share their real experiences, which really meant negative ones. On the surface, it looked like a question, but it was not. It was planting doubt. Why say it? Because you can't compete on experience, you can compete on perception. The intention was to create uncertainty and to let people fill in the negativity for you. It's a way of shaping the narrative without directly attacking. Psychologically, this is a classic cancel culture behaviour. It's called negative seeding. You introduce a small doubt and then the group dynamics take over. People feel safer piling on once someone else opens the door. It's also linked to the illusory effect, truth effect. The more something is repeated or implied, the more people start to believe it, even without evidence. And here's the real impact. I lost sleep over it. We likely lost potential students, and the post is still up. So anyone searching pole studios in Canberra in that group will find it and read that narrative first. So the person who posted it, they got exactly the outcome they wanted. What's even more telling is that anyone who tried to share a positive experience was questioned or challenged, which silences support because most people don't want to be attacked publicly. And that's how this works, not by truth, but by pressure. Also, these posts are often anonymous, but anonymous doesn't mean unaccountable. Just so people out there know, group admins can see exactly who is behind posts. So if you're an admin of a group, you will know this. Somebody will post anonymously, but we can see their name. Now, I personally knew a group admin of this group and she told me who it was. So I knew the studio that it came from and I knew the studio that did it. This same studio left us a 1-star Google review. That's just another telling sign of what was going on behind there and what was trying to be done to our studio. And that's the thing about cancel culture. It doesn't always look like an outrage or headlines. Sometimes it's just a quiet comment, strategically placed, designed to make people question something that was never in doubt to begin with.
I'm sorry that happened. That would really make me angry as a business owner.
Yeah.
And I have been fired up over many a Google review in my time where people are saying something that's not true. And it's frustrating because you can report it. You can report it and say, this person's never actually been to my studio before. I've checked all of my records and I know for a fact they've never even been here. People can go out and make as many fake reviews as they want just for fun, just to get a kick out of it. And it's really frustrating.
And I think knowing, having the knowledge that it is another studio trying to attack your studio, that's malice, that's defamation and it's unnecessary. I feel like as a business owner, you try and have integrity, right? You try to be the best version of yourself so that you can be a great leader, so that you can, attract great people, so that you can be wonderful for your staff. And it's hard to have that. It's hard to do that. So when somebody is essentially cheating, it makes you
that's
real
it.
Bad.
Real bad. And this particular post, this was not just the only one. This has happened a few times now. But this particular post, you did see the other studio jumping on there and saying, come to our studio. And they named their studio, come to our studio. So it was very obvious what was happening. However, the people reading the post don't know. They don't know. They don't know that's not the actual case. They don't know that the other studio had actually written this. So that's the sad thing about it. And, if you want to look at our Google reviews, you can also jump onto, we actually do have a class pass as well. So class pass, this is great, the great thing about class pass, when somebody leaves your class pass automatically says to them, review this class. On our class pass reviews, we have 5 500 5-star reviews. We have about 2 or 3 4-star reviews, the same with 3-star reviews, and 1 or 2 1-star reviews. So, not everyone's always happy, but 500 5-star reviews speaks volumes to my studio and to my instructors. So if only Google could do that, if only these Facebook groups would not allow that, then the reality of who we really are would be out there. But yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't control the people that do that maliciously, but how amazing that you have that many 5-star reviews. And I think a lot of the time in your situation, sometimes it might be a bit of a case of a tall poppy syndrome where there's a bit of jealousy, and I don't think sometimes people are ignorant when they're doing these things. I think it is malicious. And that is something I wondered about the original post. I know that Frisk is a very successful competition. Many people want to do this competition and don't get into this competition. It's one of the best in Victoria, arguably. And, I know the person that posted this has their own comp that's probably not as successful. So I do wonder if that comes into play, whether they're kind of taking the success and all the hype, and instead of there being all positivity following this, there's just a whole bunch of negativity and all the attention gets shifted.
Yeah. Well, we very much know how hard it is to run a competition. I'll tell you that.
Of course.
It is so hard.
It can be such a thankless business as well, competition.
Yes.
As you do put so much work into it, and they don't make a lot of money. You're lucky if you get a break even, make a small amount of profit.
100%.
So it is really just a passion project. It's a love baby. It's a passion project. Even if you sell out, unless it's a massive venue, you're not going to be making that much money. And over 12 months, 6 months, however long it takes to run or organize the comp, it really doesn't amount to that much.
I think especially since COVID, the price has just skyrocketed.
Oh gosh,
and it's
very hard. Yeah, it's so hard to break even sometimes. So yeah.
And we're only a small community. People from the outside world aren't going to really spend $80 to watch a poll.
No, exactly.
So we've got there's limited of who can come to the poll shows as well. So it's really hard.
And you're capped on the seating, how many people the venue can hold. It's not a $1 million business.
No. And I think some people don't understand that. They see the ticket prices and they're like, whoa, but they've got no idea how much that costs to hire a whole ass venue for
the whole venue, the truss, sometimes the lighting you have to bring in, sometimes the seating you have to pay for, sometimes you have to pay for the staff to be there, you have to pay for security. Okay, I'm off on a tangent. Bye.
We could do another episode on the cost of running a competition. It is high, guys. It is high.
Yeah. Anyway, that's another episode.
That is another episode.
I've got one more to read. Shall I read it? It's very deep, and I think it was an important story to tell. So this one is from someone who was cancelled by people they considered close friends. They describe being cancelled as something deeper than losing a job or being excluded because the people doing it were people they trusted. And what hit them the most wasn't even the accusations. It was that almost no one reached out to hear their side.
Yeah.
They said that they could count on one hand the number of people who actually checked in. Within days, everything had shifted: relationships, reputation, sense of self. They experienced shock, fear, shame, and completely lost confidence and identity for a period of time. What they witnessed was how quickly things escalated. One claim turned into many, people piling on without context, without evidence, without even knowing the full story. It became what they called the court of public opinion, where people act as judge, jury, and executioner without ever asking questions. Even when they had proof that the claims were false, it didn't change anything. Because once the narrative is set, it's easier for people to stay with the crowd than it is to question it. What hurt most was the betrayal. People who were warm and friendly in person would publicly speak against them online. Some admitted privately that they didn't believe the accusations but stayed silent to protect their own position. Their biggest takeaway was this: people often choose safety, popularity, or relevance over truth. but despite all of it, they said they're actually in a better place now. They know who they are and they know the truth and their integrity is intact. They've become very intentional about who they trust and keep close. Their final perspective was simple. Integrity outlasts rumors, lies, and the crowd.
That's a big one. We both know who this happened to, obviously. And it was somebody who was really important within our pole community. This person was very important within our pole community. And overnight, it was like they were burnt on a stake. And without any evidence, without anyone following up on it, without anyone actually really knowing the truth. Because the only people that actually know the truth are the people that were there. They're the only people that will ever know the truth. So everyone has just jumped on one side and that's all there was to this particular case. So this person is not within our pole community anymore.
They've been completely ostracized. And I think this was a unique, I think, example of this cancel culture because of the sheer volume of people and big names that jumped onto it. And I think that for me was really shocking. It was a very clear two people had two different versions of an event, and there was no way of knowing which one was true.
Yeah.
And then just the amount, the brutality of the rage and outpouring and just this intense boycotting of this person and the bullying, if you did support, the bullying that was seen towards the supporters was crazy.
Yeah, far out.
So this was one of those examples where I felt like this should have been handled in an actual court.
In an actual court. In an actual court. Agreed.
Not in the court of opinion, because that is 100% not where this should have been handled. And a really great example of like things becoming true. One like the confirmation bias, and what's the one you always quote, Elle, that I can't remember the name of?
The three truth effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When, in reality, nobody could know. Nobody could know.
That's right.
You could say, oh, I believe this person or I believe this person, but you can't know.
That's right. You cannot know. If you were not there, you absolutely cannot know.
I didn't like the way that people called on everyone to cancel this person. That I thought that was such a misuse of power. Publicly to outcall to say, do not use this person because this has happened, when there wasn't any proof on either side. Like, I didn't see any proof on either side that for me to make that decision, I didn't see any proof on either side.
I will say I personally have worked with this person for a number of years, over a decade. I went to them directly and I said, tell me exactly what happened. And then I went to the people who told me not to use this person and said, give me the exact of what happened. I want to know everything. And before I make a decision on anything, and for me, the decision would not be to call someone out publicly because that's not what I do. Online, you will never see me writing something online that pulls people down. But in my decision was, do I continue to work with this person? And out of everything that I was told, I just thought, how can people jump to such a conclusion? How? We weren't there. It's just I understand that things happen to people and bad things happen. And then if you think something really bad has happened, you feel like you do need to come to somebody's defense. But this is the whole situation. We don't know. We don't know. We're only hearing two sides of a story.
Final perspective was simple. Integrity outlasts rumors, lies, in the crowd. I guess it's really hopeful that this person now is in a better place. They're not in the pole community anymore. So there is life after pole. And I always think it's important to remember that, because I I guess from a very young age, like I was a ballerina before I was a pole dancer, and it was taught to me very early that this was not my forever. Because people that become very attached to what they do um, can have a lot of trouble adapting to when they stop doing that thing. So, as a dancer, if you have a catastrophic injury that can happen at any time in your career, you are going to have to stop dancing in to the capacity that you were, and you need to be okay. You need to be mentally strong. You need to be mentally ready for that eventuality wherever in your career you are. So I've always known that I won't dance forever, and I make sure that I will be okay without dancing because that could happen at any time, and that will happen at some point in time. It will happen that I won't be a pole dancer anymore. I will do my final eagle. I will do my final spatchcock. I will do my final balance stage. And I never know when that one's going to be. You know, I might have just done one at Icon and I break my leg, face, whatever the next day. I break a lot of things. It could happen. So you never know when your final curtain is, and you need to be okay outside of that. And I think that this is a really poignant statement in that there is life after pole, and you can be okay after pole, even if you are pushed out of it, even if that decision is made for you, that you need to be an okay human without the thing that you're doing. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think that's like similar to like this whole recent situation. It's like you can't control the actions of other people. So that's something to teach that, I try and teach my child, like you can't control what other people do. You can control your reaction to it. So, and that's from both sides, like really. If you are offended by that piece, you can try and control what other people do, but it's not going to really work. If you've then been hurt as well by someone being offended by you, you also can't really control that, and you just have to find a way to work on yourself and be okay with it, I guess.
And disagreeing is okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
okay to disagree. It's okay to have disagreements and to not align perfectly on everything. Um, it's okay to have disagreements in a relationship. It's okay to have disagreements in a professional setting, but you can voice those opinions without being cruel, and you can voice those opinions without targeting and without singling people out.
Do we want to say anything else, Felix? Because I know that you have been through this personally as well. Is there anything that you'd like to
I
share?
think my experience with cancel culture has been more sort of publicly calling me out and boycotting my events or my businesses, similar to what we've talked about from other studios or events that are also in, I guess, competition with me, which I feel, yeah, it made me so angry at the time because I feel like it's hard enough to be original in your business, to be creative in your business, to feed it in that way, than to have someone try to actively boycott you because
Mhm.
just because they don't agree with the way that you do something, the amount that you're charging. I think in my circumstance, it was a comp that I was running, and the ticket prices, according to this person, were extortionate, and that I should be boycotted because how dare I charge such a ridiculous amount for coming to see pole dancing, which should be accessible to everybody. This was just after COVID, and I guess maybe they hadn't looked at the price increase in everything because the very next event that they ran, they charged exactly the same as I did.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm,
Mm.
yeah.
So
Very
yeah,
interesting.
I've been called out on a lot of different things, and I don't know if you guys remember, like a few years ago, there was a competition where somebody had passed away at the comp. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So at that time, I think I was just about to run one of the, I can't remember which competition it was, and there was a lot of people saying, not a lot of people. There was one person who was actually saying, like, what are you doing to ensure that nothing like this happens? Like, have you got, and I always have senior first aid, and I always have medical personnel on site because we have like doctors and nurses that are either teachers or students or like, they're there. And me
Yeah.
as well, and my husband, he's got senior first aid. So we always have senior first aid on, but I didn't usually have St. John of God's on. So that year I was really pressured to have St. John of God's, like an ambulance present at the thing, which is another cost. You have to pay for that to do that. And so they just sat there for like the whole show. And then later I had like an emergency situation where I gave birth to my daughter at my house. And all I could think of was like, what if they couldn't get to me because they were at a pole dancing competition? You know, I was like, I took away a resource that didn't need to be with me because I had it covered. They took away a resource from the public. I took away a resource from the public that may really have been needed to save a life when in a situation where I normally have it covered, and the venue also has it covered as well because I
Yeah.
gave to public opinion. The venue has to have first aid on, you know. I always have first aid on because I like to double up. We have a defib, we have everything there. But yeah, I caved to this sort of pressure to have somebody else on that. Then I felt guilty about it because I thought, what if somebody needed that? And what if somebody died because they couldn't get emergency services quick enough, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's difficult because you can't please everybody all at the same time.
Yeah.
No, you absolutely cannot.
I think on that, it's like, I think it's when people say you should be doing this, you should be doing that.
Good.
The word should is so, I don't know, it's just no one should be telling people.
Dictatorish.
Yeah,
Well,
like
Anyone else shouldn't do.
I offered people to sponsor this. I was like, it's really expensive. I'd love to have it. Would you consider sponsoring it? Crickets.
Crickets, of course, crickets. And the loudest people would be the quietest after that, wouldn't they?
Yeah. You know, I know you're passionate about this. Would you consider sponsoring it?
No. Why would they?
yeah, it's just hard when people don't know like the cost of things and they think, oh, that's such a ripoff. But I mean, you do deserve to have a little bit of profit out of a pole competition, like, you know, have the prices reflect so that you can make like a small amount of money. Like, you're working hard. It's hard work. Yeah, it's like, it's a pretty big public service to just kind of volunteer 6 months or however many months of your time to put on a
To
pole
run
show.
it along.
Yeah, just
pretty
out
much
of the
what-
goodness at your heart. Like, no one has time for that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do it a lot, let me tell you that.
Yeah, it's pretty hard these days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was heavy. It
What was that?
was a heavy one.
It
Yeah,
was a
really.
bit heavy, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and I hope it opens people's minds. And I hope that people that may have commented on something without thinking about it will now think about the effect it can actually have on somebody and think, would I want that to happen to me? And if not, maybe just don't comment.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like it, you don't have to do a rage post against it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're allowed to not like something.
You're allowed.
You're not allowed to hurt
Yeah.
other people, you know.
Exactly.
That's what they teach our children, right? You're allowed to be upset, but you're not allowed to hit. You're not allowed to say mean words.
You can
Yeah.
have their feelings.
Yes.
You're
Feelings
allowed to
are
have
okay.
feelings. Just not allowed to hurt anybody else. Okay?
Exactly.
All right, guys, thank you so much. This has been a heavy one. I think it's important. Thanks for sticking with us if you're listening along. And I hope that, you know, maybe you didn't agree with everything that we said. Maybe you agreed with some of it. But yeah, I think that everybody can agree that we don't want to hurt people and we don't want to cause people pain. So if we can think before acting and just, make sure that we own our actions, then I think it'll be a happier pole world to live in.
Agreed. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks so much,
coming
guys, for having
Just
me.
thanks for being with us.
No, thanks for having me. It was a nice chat.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, guys, and we will see you on the next one. Okay, bye.
Bye.